What's up guys, and welcome back to On the Brick with another LEGO review. Today we're going to be looking at set number 75292, the Razor Crest from the Mandalorian. This set comes with 1023 pieces and includes 4.5 minifigures. The half of course being the child or baby Yoda, as this is the only set that you can get him in. The back of the box of course just shows you all the different things you can do with opening up the Razor Crest, the cockpit, the escape pod, opening up the guns to reveal what's inside, and of course the spring-loaded shooters. And of course this time around there is a secret code in order to unlock this in the LEGO Skywalker Saga video game that's coming up next year. But let's take a quick look at the minifigures and then get into the set. First up is the child himself, and honestly this is an extremely simple minifigure. Of course this uses the relatively new but still several years old baby mold, and I do still think they did a good job with it, even if it's really lacking in any detail at all. There's some sort of slightish printing on the torso, but not really much else at all, though I will say that the mold for the head is really nice. And do really want to say that despite all that, I do enjoy this figure. I've seen a few customs out there, and well, I still prefer this one over those, and if you know me, that's saying a lot. Next up is the Mandalorian himself, and he has the same armor as from the AT-ST set. I really have to think that LEGO must have only known about like the first 3 episodes or so. And I have to be honest, this figure really confuses me. It still looks good like it did from the AT-ST set, but the inclusion of the other minifigures implies this is from the final episode, at which point the Mandalorian already had his Beskar armor, which makes me wonder, why is this Mandalorian the same one? Just like the previous Mandalorian, there is no head under the helmet, and there is printing on the back underneath the cape. Up next is Karga, who looks okay. I'll be honest, I don't think the color choices for this figure were the correct ones at all. Looking at this picture of the actual character, I don't really see why they went with red in the LEGO version. Yellow arms are more understandable, though I would have gone with something more like dark tan, but the red just really sticks out and isn't what we see. The actual printing on it is fine, but to me, this does not represent Karga. Also, he does come with an alternate angry face. Next up is IG-11, and there's not too much to say about him. I do think he's a perfectly fine character. I think he looks great. It's almost exactly like IG-88, and my cat is currently climbing on my back, so one second. I've recorded this sentence twice now, and both times I said samed in the nimbler fashion. But I do wonder if all IG units are named in the similar fashion of IG and 2 consecutive numbers. Not consecutive, but repeating, like IG-88, IG-11. I don't really know, but I'm gonna look into it. The answer is no, it's nothing like that at all. Finally, we have a Scout Trooper who, weirdly enough, is probably my favorite figure from this set. While IG-11 was still a good figure, there just wasn't too much to do there. But with this Scout Trooper, it seems like they actually put effort into it, because the overall design actually looks really good, the printing looks good, this is a really well-made figure. Even the helmet looks fine, and by the way, if you remove that helmet, you don't have Angry Clone, you have a new face underneath. So already these minifigures are a little mixed for me. The Scout Trooper is really good, IG-11 is about as good as it can be, and the child, while lacking details, is still really nice. The actual figure for the Mandalorian himself is fine, it's just not the one that should have come in this set. And Karga to me is rather disappointing, they just got the colors wrong on that one. But how does the actual set hold up? Again, I have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, it was a really enjoyable build that I finished in only a few hours. On the other hand, there is a lot less to this set than I originally thought there would be. There are some aspects of this set that I really do not like. Some areas where it's just a personal opinion with how I like sets, but some where I really think LEGO should have done better. And this set kind of falls into a weird area for me. It's not quite good enough for display, but as you'll see, there's also not that much playability. Now that said, this set is meant for 10 plus, so kids around that age or slightly older or younger are gonna have a lot of fun with this thing. So for a younger audience, this set would be totally fine. But from an older perspective and a hopefully objective point of view, this set does have some issues. But let's go through the set and talk about it. Starting at the front, one of the first things you can do is actually take off the canopy here. And as I'm sure you know by now, this is a completely printed part, which is really nice and something that I really appreciate that LEGO did. But it does make me question things like the UCS A-Wing, in which the canopy was not a printed piece. And that is a $200 collector set, so if they can do a printed piece on something like this, I feel like they need to start doing it on the UCS sets. Cockpit is a little small, but there is plenty of room for 2 characters in there. There's not much else going on in there, to be honest. There is a control panel at least, but like Jang said in his review, I feel like there really should have been at least a lever or something to represent what the child plays with in the show. You can of course fit the Mandalorian into the seat just fine, there's zero issues with that at all, and if you want you can put the child in the seat behind him. Once the canopy is off, you can move this piece out from behind it. It tilts open, and while there's not much underneath it, there is room to hold 2 weapons, so while you have the Mandalorian flying around, you can have his blaster hanging out back here. Moving to the side of the ship, if we move this panel down, then we reveal the weapons locker, or, well, in this case, really just the spring-loaded shooters locker. The spring-loaded shooters are integrated directly into the wings and are kind of hidden in there, and I'm sorry that I forgot to film it, but I personally don't ever use them, so it kind of slipped my mind on this occasion, my bad. I honestly would have preferred if this was switched with what was on top behind the cockpit. I would have preferred if there was a weapons locker here and these were stored up there. You can of course move the panel next to it down as well, and that is the ramp to get inside of the ship, and in fact all of these panels can be lowered. If we go around the ship lowering all of them, you can see that they all seamlessly come down, none of them get in the way of each other, and when they're all lowered it looks like Jawa's got to the Razor Crest. At the front you can see impressions of a bedroom with these stickers and this like makeshift bed here. You can fit a figure inside, but that's really about what you can do there. It doesn't look bad at all, and I actually really do enjoy this. I just wish the rest of the Razor Crest, well, continued this. I'll explain what I mean in just one second, but first you do get these 2 not really figures. These are obviously representing 2 bounties captured in carbonite like we see in the first episode of the season. They do look good. I do appreciate that we at least got 2 different stickers. And I know it's a lot to ask, but I really was hoping that maybe we would get a new mold of this version of Han and Carbonite. I can fully understand why we didn't get that, so I am okay with these. Even if for some reason every single time I try to put them back in, it's a little troublesome. They tend to get stuck for some reason. Now what I really meant with the bedroom thing is this. This set is really empty. There is not much going on the inside of this ship at all. There's not much room, which is definitely a huge reason for that, but they really should have taken advantage of what they did have. Again, maybe a gun locker at the front of the ship, or one thing I personally would have really liked to see is even maybe like a tile or a sticker for a round piece here representing the hatch used in the prison episode. Even for a 10-year-old playing with this set, they don't really have that much to go off of. This really does look like the Jawas got to it, and not in a good way. Again, I know that adding more to the inside of the ship would have left it with like no room at all, but I personally think this went too far in the other direction. It's not like we don't see the inside of the ship, we spend a lot of time inside the Razor Crest. Again, we don't need everything, but maybe just a little more here. But before I go on a long rant, one more thing that you can do with this set is take the escape pod off the top here. It's a pretty simple build that does look good, and it integrates just fine with the rest of the ship. You can open it up, take one of your minifigures, and sit him inside just fine. because I didn't take the guns off of him, the top didn't sit really flush, but it didn't really matter at all. And like I said, you can stick it right back into the Razor Crest and it'll be just fine. The one issue I ran into, and I didn't film this because I didn't think I would need to, is I couldn't really get the minifigure out that easily, but that might just be because, again, I'm not 10 years old. Even though I understand that this is entirely a playset, part of the reason that I think it doesn't work necessarily as a display piece is because it feels unfinished. If you've watched my channel for a long time, then you know that I prefer smooth exteriors. So something like this on the ramp is a little disappointing to see, as they easily could have just put some tiles there and made it look finished. Because it's not like the Razor Crest is a cobbled together heap of junk, it's a sleek, good looking ship. But at the same time, the back here is fine. Again, I understand it's a playset and this at least makes it look complete, unlike the ramp which looks like it's unfinished. One more area that really sticks out to me is the front panel here, as it's not flush with the rest of the ship. There is actually a noticeable gap between the top of the panel and the rest of the vehicle. I actually went and looked through my instructions to make sure that I had built this area correctly, and yes, I had. I double and triple checked to make sure. But it seems that the final product just looks like this with a noticeable gap. And that's why I have mixed thoughts on this thing. Because on one hand, it does look pretty decent when it's all put together, it was a very fun build, and I do really appreciate the inclusion of the printed canopy piece. On the other hand, you still have a lot of stickers, some pretty large stickers included too. A small cockpit, a bunch of nothing underneath the ship, gaps in the panels, and some areas that look unfinished. And for the $130 asking price, it's a little tough to say. Because you are getting a decent ship out of it, you're getting some okay and good minifigures out of it. The ship holds together just fine, so especially for a younger audience that this is meant for, sure, it will be perfectly fine for them. I do think it's a little more expensive than it should be, but then again, there are a lot of really big pieces in here, so I can kind of understand where that extra money comes in. But I am a little disappointed by the end result. I really do think this set should have had the Beskar version of the Mando. I do think that Grief Karga does not look good in this set at all. While I can give the inside a pass, and while I'm willing to overlook the unfinished looks of the outside, I do think the gap in the panel is really disappointing. The wonderful thing about LEGO is that all of those are things you can fix if you want to. Meanwhile, my Mando is going to be going off to something a little bigger in about a month or so at the end of October. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Or, if you really want, you can sign up to be a patron and know exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you to all of you who recently signed up, and remember, at the $3 level, you will see your name on screen, like all of these people. I feel like I'm a bit of an outlier here, because I saw a lot of people talking very positively about this set, and I do fully understand where they are coming from. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Remember to like this video if you liked what you saw, subscribe if you haven't already, and please do remember my giant giveaway that is going on right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.